Hi everyone, this is Holly from Hot Humble Pie. Welcome to my channel if you're new, and a big warm hello to my subscribers. I love you guys. Today I thought it would be fun to bring you my favorite free DIYs and DIYs I made from garbage, like literally from garbage. And as always, I hope you enjoy the show. And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. For this DIY, you're going to need two, one large one, one small one, some cardboard, some of the basket reed, and some of the Dollar Tree faux leather. And I'm taking that trick again with the paper and pushing it around for the size. I find that works the best. And I'm using the knife to cut. That did end up being the best method, the paper and the utility knife. So now you're going to trace the container tops onto the cardboard, and you're going to be tracing two circles of each. So I did one for the small container and one for the larger container, and I'm just here kind of cutting off the edges to make it easier because I plan on cutting these with my scissors. You can see them up there in the right hand corner, and it's just easier if you get most of the cardboard, cut off. That way you don't have to fight with it. Now you're going to hot glue the two cardboard pieces together for both the large and the small. And make sure as you're doing this that you check for a fit, because this is going to be a lid, so you don't want it to fall through the center. And I'm using the Dollar Tree glue stick. This works really great for me. One subscriber came on and said that she bought some and they weren't sticking. So I did buy some more packages, and I haven't opened those yet. I haven't needed to, but I'll let you know as we move along if the quality control has changed. But the ones that I originally bought that were in a package of 8 are outstanding. So I have this paper that I ordered from Amazon, and it's down below my description box. A link there if you're interested. You get quite a bit for your money. It's like antique paper, really, really pretty. And I decide that I'm going to go ahead and cover them using that paper and the glue stick. Now, when you use the glue sticks, you do have to apply a generous amount. And I really want to stress that you can't miss any sections, and it can't be scant where you're just kind of rubbing it real quick. You want it caked on there really, really thick. And maybe that's why mine sticks so well, because I'm really generous. But 8 sticks for 99 cents. Even now they've reduced the package down to 4. Still 4 for 99 cents. You cannot, or $1, you cannot beat that. So here I am. I'm cutting the top part, and I'm leaving a little overhang again because I want to tuck that around. And I think maybe if I had to do it again, I would have left a little bit more of an overhang. It's totally up to you, but it would have looked prettier maybe further down in the container. But again, it came up beautiful, but I just left a little bit. And I'm using my spatula. You can get that at the Dollar Tree, Walmart, or Amazon. I have a link down below my description box if you're interested in the spatula. It's a silicone spatula, and it doesn't melt, and it saves your fingers. And now I'm just covering the lids with the paper as well. I used this really pretty stripe paper for the small container. And here's what the faux leather ribbon is for. This is going to be the edge of the lid, because we're making little mini French hat boxes, you guys. They come up so cute. This is one of my favorite DIYs too in this video. I love this. It's on my chest of drawers. I think it's so cute. But you go very gentle. Don't pull it, because if you pull or try to press too hard, if you press the ribbon too hard, you'll make it kind of go to an angle, and you don't want it to go to an angle. You want it straight down just like that, so it fits like a lid. So that's what it should look like when you're all done. And then these are some free printables that are available on the Graphics Fairy website. I've been using her for years. She's very, very generous. All you have to do is go on her website, graphicsfairy.com, and put in French hat boxes, and this comes up in her search. So I resized them a little bit. I just downloaded them and then dragged them into my word processing program so that I could adjust the size. That's a nice little trick. And now I'm using Country Tan because I just wanted to age these just a little bit. This is a paint I've had forever, and I was worried that Apple Barrel didn't make it anymore, but I checked, you can still buy it online. So I don't think Walmart, where I live, carries it, but I absolutely love the Country Tan. I'm running out of it, so eventually I have to get some more because I think it's like 15 years old. Those paints, you really get a good bang for your buck. But here I am just aging the labels a little bit. Doesn't that look pretty? That Country Tan just gives a color that I can't get with any other color in the Apple Barrel line. For this kind of aging, I love that. It's just that really pretty, soft mocha color. And now I'm using the burnt umber. And I'm going to be using this for the lid because up close you can see a little bit of the hot glue between the ribbon and the, where the ribbon and the cardboard meet. Because hot glue is a little lumpy, you can see just a little bit. So this totally works to camouflage it. I just go around and age it. You can see what I'm doing there. I'm just dry brushing a little bit on the edge, and it just adds a lot of, I think it adds a lot of charm too. So I do it for both the large lid and the small lid, and that's it. I absolutely love this DIY. Amazon wants $21.99 for this. Now with tax, it's going to be more like $24, maybe close to $25. Now for those of you that watch my channel, you know that I've got lots of free wood, but I am trying to make this user-friendly, so I'm using foam board. I am using some of the free wood at the bottom because I want some weight to hold it so that it doesn't tip over when I put the silk flowers in. If you don't have free wood, a trick I used to do all the time when I didn't have any free wood was I just would glue about 3 pieces of cardboard together at the bottom to save my foam board, because foam boards still cost money. And then I would just take a nice little nature walk outside and collect rocks. They're free, they're easy to get, hopefully, unless you live in the city, but usually somewhere, even if you're in the city, there's somewhere, even a park, that has some rocks. And failing that, if you don't have rocks, you can always throw like a bag of pinto beans, that kind of thing, not the whole bag, but I used to take the pinto beans, mix it with some school glue, and just dump a little bit in there and press it down, let it dry overnight. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can add weight to the bottom, but you just don't want it to tip over. So here I am, I'm just gluing the foam board down, so we have our nice little planter box. These are the 3 colors I'm using. Now, I don't even bother zooming in at this point, you guys, because, we got blurry, worry. So you don't have to use the exact same colors. I was using, I believe it was burnt umber for sure, antique parchment, they're all Apple Barrel paints, and I believe the other one was chocolate sprinkle. Now, here's the fun technique I wanted to show you with baby wipes, and it works even on foam board, which is surprising, but there you go. I paint the paint, even the paint on the other side, which I painted first, it still works. If you press really hard, you got that glide factor with the baby wipe, and you get this beautiful stain browning type result. It's the substances they put in the baby wipe. I think the skin conditioners and all the different moisturizers, they make a great glide factor. So I'm painting the edge of foam board, very important, or it will look beyond stupid. And here you can see the center of this is kind of light, and then it's got like blotted dots around the side. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be honest here, this is a look for less, so I'm going for the look, but I didn't care for the way it looked, almost like a cookie cutter cloned stamped type box, just kind of thrown out there. My house is rustic and farmhouse. That's what I'm transferring it into. I'm actually in the process of moving it into that look because I love that. So I want my box to look a lot more farmhouse, a lot more rustic, and a lot more old, almost like repurposed wood. So although I'm going for the look, I'm still making it my own. I'm using a makeup sponge to dot the burnt umber and the antique parchment, and just a baby wipe to kind of blur that out. I'm painting the edges, and I do use a little spackling to close all of the little edges as well, because one edge had like, you could see through it and that looks stupid. And there's my final result. Really pretty. And of course I'm using my favorite method, carbon paper, and I did print that out. Oh wait, no I didn't. I stand corrected. I held that up to my computer screen and I traced it. Now again, it's going to be a printable in the description box. I did my best finding the kind of font that was close to the one from, Amazon, so it might be a little bit different, but I think it's close enough. And in the end, I like my box better. here I'm adding nightmare foam. Now I'm saying nightmare foam, you guys, because I said don't throw away your foam when it comes. This is that kind of foam when you cut it, it turns into a million little balls, and it was stuck all over me and I totally regret it. It wasn't worth it. I threw the rest away, but for this craft I'm using it because I went through the trouble and I got all messy, so I figured just on principle. But there it is. And last but not least, one of my favorite things to do to make things look real, and I've been doing this since the 1990s, that's a little carpet tack, and I just put a little bit of glue on it and I push it in all four corners on both sides because that really just adds so much realism. I'm guessing the real one, or rather the other one, doesn't have that. I'm not even sure if the one on Amazon is real wood, but anyway, there it is, you guys, and I think this is absolutely gorgeous, so much so that it's in the center on my mantle. For this DIY, you're going to need a bath mat from the Dollar Tree and a cylinder shape. Now, I chose a coffee can, and that's the brand I'm using. That still makes the metal cans. Kirkland's also makes metal cans, and you can buy that on Amazon. You can also shop around and look for a container that you would like from the Dollar Tree. I liked this DIY so much that I ended up making a smaller one with the leftover piece using a large tomato can. So I just think they're so cute. Next, I'm taking some masking tape because it's cheap, easy, and fast, and it works. And I'm going to wrap these cans up, and that will create a surface that the hot glue will stick to, and then the bath mat will stick to that. And I've never had anything fall apart, so I can vouch by it. I think you'd probably get away with other tapes as well. Just make sure that the surface is kind of porous and it looks like it's going to be friendly to both. You know, your tape's going to stick to the metal and the hot glue will stick to the bath mat because it's sticking to the tape, that kind of thing. You want to make sure everything's hitting the mark there. You might want to do a little test run if you're going to use a different kind of tape. And I'm just wrapping this up, and it folds really easy on the inside too. So I don't really have to add the tape on. I realize when I'm doing this, I don't really need the tape on the inside. I just do a little bit of hot glue, and it's enough to tack it down because once I put the greenery in, that's going to hold it as well. And there's my small tomato can that I made. It's my little friendly, it's a team effort here, you guys. I just think it's so cute. I love the Dollar Tree bath mats. I can think of so many fun DIYs for them. This is just the beginning. But there I am. I'm just going to put some greenery in it. This is going to go in my bathroom. If you have farmhouse boho or any kind of modern look, this is a great way to get a high-end fast planter just to put some greenery around your house. And the last step is to add a little bit of paint with my paint pen, and we're all done. So I've got ladders coming out of my ears, you guys. I made this one for under $5 from Home Depot wood, and this one was free off my bunk bed from my kids, and great for hanging stuff on. But I saw this one online, and it's got a whole different look, totally rustic, and I've always wanted one where the rungs are like crooked, like a total farmhouse ladder outdoors, and I'm gonna make it with that free wood. Here we go. Now, if you missed how to get free wood, it's in my first video. This is called dunnage blocks. This is what they lift that plywood with, and you pretty much, when you go to get free wood, you get mostly these, and you get plywood. It's great for making things, and we're gonna make tons of crafts. I've got so many ideas, so call them up and see, because they throw that stuff away. You might have better luck at the like private lumber guys, you know, lumber yards, privately owned, because I don't think they have as big of an operation in place to get rid of their wood. So more often than not, at least where I live, they throw it away. But definitely call around, see if someone will leave that outside for you to go pick up. So here I am, I'm going to use wood glue first, and then my trusty Ryobi gun. It's all Ryobi stuff, you guys. I bought a whole package, a circular saw, the gun, and a drill, and the sander. It was a great deal. It's been life-changing for me. If you craft a lot, try and do it, you guys. Save your money, or ask everyone to chip in for Christmas gifts or just a birthday gift. But it's really life-changing if you craft a lot. So I purposely made the rungs crooked there. I want this ladder like something you would see at Knott's Berry Farm. I mean, I want a farmhouse ladder, and I'm using my favorite color, black, to dirty it up and make it look soiled. And you see me there, I've got a scrap piece of wood. Really smart, you guys. You put paint on that, and you don't really ever need to dip your brush in paint again. If you're just dry brushing, it kind of controls the dry brushing so that you don't have any blots or big, you know, you can make a mistake and it ruins the whole effect. And I'm wearing protective goggles there. I don't wear glasses, but I have learned the hard way, you guys. I have had so much stuff fly in my eye, from paint to sawdust. So when you craft, if you're doing heavy crafting like this, please protect your eyes. And here it is, you guys. I absolutely loved this. This ladder was free. Didn't cost me a thing. Now, I have a shed, and I bring my summer stuff into the shed every year when the rain comes. So this is only going to be out for summer and spring. So I'm not worried about covering it with any kind of polyacrylic or sealing it. In fact, the more old it gets and the more rotted and falling apart, the better and more authentic it looks, because that's the look I'm going for. I absolutely love this. It's free. It looks so rustic, and you know, you just can't beat free. So here's my online inspiration, that herb sign. I absolutely love the look, everything. It's that ink look again that I was telling you guys about in previous videos. And here's my free plywood. Now the thing about free plywood, they give it to you because it's really, really cracked, dry, bent, or it's got like too many knots in it. Either way, it's not sellable. That's why they give it to you. So, but it's perfect for crafting. Oh my gosh, that's exactly what we're after when we are doing farmhouse decor, because we go to a lot of work to make our wood look distressed, but if it already is distressed, it's all good. So here I am, I'm sanding it, and with these plywood, you know, the free plywood that I get from, you know, well, mine all came from Home Depot. One piece came from Lowe's. I just concentrate on the edges because that's where I tend to get splinters. And then I'm just using a nice light gray here that has a little bit of blue in it. It's an apple barrel paint. I can't remember the color of it, but it's not really important because you can use any light gray you want. You can even use white. In fact, I think the inspiration picture, they use white, and then they just like dry brush a black, really dry brush. Like the brush is pretty much dry. They just go over it with black, and that's how they get their color. Look at that. You can see it does it. That looks like I painted white on top, and I didn't. It just doesn't settle down into those deep cracks because the wood is very distressed. And that's the font I used. So if you want to go get that, it's free online, you guys. Just Google free farmhouse fonts. You've got lots to choose from. And I'm using carbon paper to transfer my letters. It's still one of my favorite ways to transfer. In fact, I've even considered coloring in my letters with the carbon paper there, and you certainly could do that, and that would mimic like an ink stamp from days gone by, which is a great look for vintage crafts. The painter pen that I showed you is also from Amazon. It was around $3.75. I've used it about 15 times, and it's about, well, I got it in December 2019, and it's still super full, hasn't dried out, so I'm really pleased with that marker as well. And there it is, garden seeds, flowers, and weeds. And I'm going to Mod Podge it because it's going to be outside. So last minute change here, I grabbed some wire cutters, and drill some holes because I've got an idea for where these little guys will look the best. And ultimately they end up on that rustic ladder. Look at that, you guys, it is so cute. When the wind blows, the signs were flapping back and forth earlier that day. The breeze has kind of died down now, but it's perfect. So this is my inspiration piece from Wayfair, and it really is, an inspiration piece. Mine isn't identical, but that triggered an idea. I'm using lath. My lath was free, but if you want to buy it, it's almost free. It's $1.12 for 8 feet, and you can just drive to Home Depot. They'll cut it for you and put it in your trunk, and you drive away. It is usually red. Sometimes you can find it in light colors, but if you're going to paint it, it doesn't matter. And because it's really thin, kind of like a ruler, it is often the wood that breaks that ends up in their trash can. So I think the guy told me they lose about 20 pieces off of each stack that they get. So pretty regular free wood that you can pick up if your Home Depot or Lowe's manager is nice and not being weird about it. And for more information on how you can get free wood, I do talk about it in my first video. But every single store that sells wood invariably has wood that is free because they have to. It gets damaged, it isn't sellable. It's just up to the individual managers whether or not they're going to give that to you for free or throw it away. But it is what it is. I will tell you, for the Home Depot manager that does that for me, I am a hardcore patron. That is the only Home Depot that I buy stuff at. I go out of my way, so I encourage you guys to do the same. It's a nice way to say thank you. So here I'm mixing some paint up. It's just brown paint. You can use whatever paint you want, but I want these to look stained, and I'm trying to copy the inspiration picture. And I made my anchor and starfish the same way that I made my Pottery Barn dupe faux wooden beads. For those of you that haven't watched that video, I will link it at the end of this video, and I will also put it down in my description box. But I'm dabbing it on with a baby wipe, and in the end, you guys, I figured out that just painting it on first and dabbing it off was better, and I didn't really need a baby wipe. I could have just done it with paper towels, but live and learn. So just use a paper towel, that's fine. In fact, these little guys here really prefer not to get wet, so paper towel is probably more optimal. I end up having to blow dry them, which is fine. Everything worked out okay, but it was one extra step that you won't need to do if you use a paper towel. So I'm also going to be taking my favorite color, black paint. For those of you that watch my video again, you guys know I love black paint for weathering, and I'm going to make everything look old and beaten up and dirty like it's been outside. So now I'm laying out all of my pieces here to kind of get a feel for how I want it to look. And I decide that I'd rather not have uniformity with two broken ends on either side, even though my inspiration piece is like that. I like it better when it's uneven, because that's how it would really be with a real sign at the beach. They break unevenly and, get beaten up differently from the salt air. So I wanted to make sure mine looked that way too. And I'm just taking more black paint now, and I'm edging the starfish and the anchor to make it look all old and distressed as well. And here I'm just using the jute twine from Walmart. It's a little thicker, and I'm going to wrap it around the anchor and make it look like the rope that would be on an anchor. And for those of you that don't have any jute twine, you can look around and use an old shoelace. I've also taken white t-shirts before, cut them super, super wafer thin, and then twisted them around and around in a coil and soaked them in like a tea or watered down brown paint, and it looks awesome. Actually, it looks the same. So use your imagination and have fun. Of course, because the edges are raw wood, I'm going to take my wood glue here. I talk about the benefits of wood glue in depth in many of my videos, but basically, you guys, if you're going to glue raw wood together, just trust me. Use wood glue because it becomes part of the wood. And I'm using my hot glue in between to tack it on so that it stays in place while I'm crafting. And I do decide to give a little extra support to these on the back, so I take some craft sticks, I cut off the ends because they're a tad bit longer, and I glue them on the back. And for those of you that are wondering how I got those pieces all broken and jagged looking, I stepped on those puppies. I did. I just put some flip-flops on, stepped on them, and snapped them. It was super easy, and it came out perfect. I think I just broke off little pieces here and there to get it just right, but came out great. So here's my inspiration piece, but I wanted to make it nautical. So I saw another piece, and the trick was to put it together. And again, I'm using my free wood. These are called dunnage blocks. For those of you that watch my video on Seriously Free DIYs number 2, I made a ladder using these. They're very distinct. They have that groove in there, and that's where the little forklift thing goes in there when they're lifting up big pallets of plywood. I did have to sand it down, but that was it. I can't complain. This particular dunnage block was unusual in that it was a perfect square, so I was saving it. I only got one, but I knew that it was unique, and I knew that I was going to be able to use it for something special. And when I saw those photos, I knew exactly what I was going to use them for. So now I'm taking wood glue, a little bit more on wood glue since I have, some time here. At a molecular level, it bonds and becomes one with the grain of the wood. So very powerful hold. Optimal glue to use with wood, raw wood. If you've got your wood covered in thick paint or a poly acrylic or something, it's no good. It's got to be right on the raw wood. But great glue. I would use super glue second if I didn't have wood glue. That's probably the next best hold along with the hot glue. Now here I'm going to wrap around, and I said it wrong in my last video, you guys. It's sisal rope, not sisal. So I'm correcting it now. Sisal rope. I'm going to wrap it around and give it that nautical feel. So here's my inspiration piece, you guys, $15.99 for a pile of rocks. And here's the actual beach where we picked our rocks, and my husband and I went. We picked driftwood up, shells, lots of fun. And here's the rocks that I ended up washing off. You can tell they're heavy there. I'm trying to move them off the table gracefully. And the color blues I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to be lightly, these blues are pretty intense. So even though I'm lightly touching the rock, I'm still going to get quite a bit of color coming off. They did a study on blues, and they found it's a calming color. So I think that's why you probably see it in hospitals and preschools and classrooms. I know I met a teacher once who said she purposely chose the blue big poster paper to put on the bulletin board to keep her, she thought maybe it helped to keep her students calmer so she'd have less behavioral problems. So blue's really calming. It's perfect for an ocean decor piece. And I'm just giving it 3 different colors. I thought that'd be really pretty to do, almost like a, it's not going to be exactly like the inspiration piece because that was just meant for inspiration. I'm going to make it my own, and I am going more for the ombre effect. And E6000 works great on rocks, you guys. So there I am. I'm putting 3 big dots of E6000. I'm putting the hot glue on to hold it in place. And then I remember I forgot to write my word on it. Yep. I had taken the word off my inspiration piece and blown it up a little bit and traced it from my computer screen. That's a nice little tip for those of you that watch my videos. You've heard me say that before. I often trace my computer screen. Perfectly safe as long as you don't press too hard, and it's a great way to save ink and paper. And this beach is just another word. I think I actually looked up nautical stuff and the word beach came up and I went, oh, that's pretty. And I traced that one. And I'm using my black painter's pen. The painter pen that I am using is below in my description box if you're interested. It works really, really well and it lasts a long time. And I'm just filling in these words. And I also decide that these need a little bit of dry brushing with white paint. I want to make them look scratched, but I also thought it would be fun to try and imitate the white foam of the ocean. And time for more E6000 and gluing. And I want to tell you guys, once I put the hot glue on, this instantly bonded. It's super heavy. I was able to turn it sideways and write that word on it. It was amazing. And here's a shell I had. I thought that would be so pretty on the front. I love mine better than the one from Hobby Lobby. And you did not need E6000 either with the shell, just hot glue. So maybe hot glue and rocks go together really well, but everything worked great. You're going to need a bottle and some corks and some old-fashioned writing. Now, the only thing I could think of was our U.S. Constitution that had the kind of old-fashioned handwriting that I wanted. And I'm just going to roll the title up on the inside so you won't see that. Now, if you want to see that, you could use this, I guess, as a 4th of July decoration. But for now, I'm using it for beach decor, so I'm going to roll it up on the inside. Here I am edging it with the color Burnt Umber from Apple Barrel Paint, and I'm just making it look nice and old. For those of you that watch my videos, you know that I love masking tape, especially for putting it down first to make a surface a little bit more, I guess, adhesive for hot glue, because hot glue often doesn't like to stick on shiny surfaces, and I've used it for years and I have found it works great. But you can use whatever sticky kind of tape, you know, as long as it has a good stick, you can use whatever you want for this. And I'm just taking the twine from the Walmart and wrapping it up around and around at the top, and I do end up going down a little bit longer on the other end as well. Using a lighter to burn off the extra long hairs and fuzz. The amount of times that you wrap it around and around is going to vary from project to project depending on what size bottle you use and how much twine you have left. But you start it by a thin strip of glue at the top and you end it with a thin strip of glue, and then you're going to see me right here put glue in a vertical direction, and then I turn it and I press the string into it so that my cork will hang downwards in a vertical position. And And in a minute you're going to see me dump some really beautiful turquoise sand in this bottle that I have left over for some sand paintings that I did many years ago. There it is, absolutely beautiful, perfect for a nautical decor piece. You just tuck that little message in the bottle, and I have a leftover tassel from a boho project that I did. I made 2 tassels and I only ended up using 1, and I thought it would be perfect for this bottle. That's it. This craft is one that I have been waiting to make all year. You're going to need a printable of an anchor. That will be a free printable down below in my description box for you. And I changed the size. That is a tutorial I gave you in a Christmas video. I will also link that down below in the video for those of you that don't know how to do that. It took up about 4 pieces of paper when I printed it out, but I wanted it really big. And I'm using it as a template. As you can see, I cut out some cardboard. And this is a combination of bamboo and driftwood that I collected at the ocean last year that I've been waiting to use to make this. I saw something on Pinterest. I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. We're going to be making an anchor completely out of driftwood and bamboo. I didn't have enough driftwood, but I did want to give you a tip that Rosemary from Fabbed Hacks told me about how to make driftwood. She said that you look for the kind of messed up wood that you would already find, maybe that's been wet for a while or buried by dirt. You know, just kind of start with branches that nature's already done a number on, if you can. She also said you could pick some that were naturally bleached by the sun. Just one that you want to look for old branches laying on the ground that have been there for a while. That's the trick. And then you take those and soak them in a 6-to-1 solution of water to bleach, and then sun dry, and you get something pretty close to driftwood. I saw her final results in one of her videos. I thought it was brilliant. I soaked my wood in bleach water when I got home just to clean it in case, you know, I brought any little passengers home that I didn't want from the beach. But I remember thinking, wow, they came up light and dry looking. So it never occurred to me that that would work on regular wood too. And it did. So if you don't live by the sea, you can still have driftwood. Don't worry. And I have a feeling even if you had brand new wood, if you left it in a stronger solution of bleach and water for longer, you would still have the same effect. It's a great way to get that look. And of course, don't forget to pick off all of your soggy bark because you're after the wood without the bark underneath. So as you can see, I'm gluing it, and I'm just looking for different shapes, sizes, curvatures in the wood to get around that hole. And then I'm gluing even on the side of the wood when I need to. I'm not staying totally on the cardboard because I want to cover every little bit of this cardboard up. When I'm done, you do not see the edges of the cardboard anywhere. See that broken stick right there? I had a lot of those left, and they turned out to be perfect for filling in little holes and covering those edges. Wait and see. Wherever it was impossible for me to cover the cardboard, I would take the craft knife and cut it away. But the ultimate goal was to make sure no cardboard showed anywhere. And the last final step was to put some craft sticks and the leftover part of a shim on the back to make it nice and sturdy. But this came up absolutely stunning. I'd love to know what you think. I love this. was inspired by this Pier 1 wood bead charger, and I've got some free wood. Now if you missed how to get the free wood, it's in my very first video I uploaded on YouTube, and it's in the description box as well. And I took my jigsaw and cut a circle, and it doesn't have to be a perfect circle because we're not going to be seeing that edge. And then I took my handy dandy Ryobi sander, which I highly recommend you get, and I sanded it smooth. And here's the free wood and the free beads. And if you missed the video on how to make free beads, I'm going to leave it in the description box as well. Today we're using apple barrel paint in antique parchment, and we're just going to add a little water to it to make like a whitewash. I'm aiming to get that wood a little less orange. Now the example from Pier 1 is absolutely beautiful, but it's a little more orange than is my style, I guess. I'm going to get it close to that, but not quite so orange. Now the first step I have to do is to try and get this piece of wood to match the beads. So that's what I'm doing right now. Now I'm using a whitewash type approach because I don't want to lose that beautiful wood grain. I love wood, you guys. It's got a beauty that's hard to replicate, so whenever I can, I try to keep it. You will see me paint wood because sometimes I want it painted, but in this particular project, I want to see that wood. Now here I am matching the bead, and you can see it's not quite light enough, so we're going to go for a second coat. And we are looking good. And here I am using E6000 on wood, and I feel the need to explain myself because those of you who have been watching my videos know that I told you in the first video E6000 doesn't work on raw wood, it soaks into it. But I don't have anything else in the house, so I was desperately hoping that that little whitewash would work some miracle, but yeah, no, it didn't. These little puppies fell off, and in the end, hot glue worked just fine. So if you have nothing else, hot glue's fine. If you have something like super glue, gel, or something else along that line, and you want it to be really durable, I would try that instead. And there we are, we're looking good so far. Now the Pier 1 plate or wooden charger it's elevated off the ground a little bit. So to accomplish this, because I like that feature, I'm going to use a wine cork. Even though I don't drink wine, I have this surplus of wine corks because family members bring it over for every holiday. Well, I mean, I guess I do drink wine around the holidays, but I don't drink it like all year round. So here I'm just adding just a little bit of height. I cut the wine cork. They're easy to do if you have a utility knife. It's easy to cut. Now I'm not going to bother rattling off these colors here. If you want, you can pause it, but any colors in more or less that range works perfect. You don't have to be super, picky about matching the identical colors I used. I will say, surprisingly though, that kayaki color, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, K-H-A-K-I, turns out to be the color that gives it a nice, subtle, golden brown hue. I don't know if it's even golden, but it definitely is the color that exactly what I wanted, and it didn't look like it was going to be in the bottle. So I end up adding some water to it and using it as another wash as soon as I do I do the beads first. And here I go. There I am. I'm using it as a wash, and I have to do that twice as well. But I use it as a wash to make it nice and golden, and then we get a really pretty result. I decide to dry brush the light antique parchment color on just to make it look a little more rustic because that's the theme in my home. And here I am, I'm just painting in between the little beads, so there's no peekaboo areas. And here we go. It's done. And I'll tell you, this little boy, I love him. Look at how complimentary that is for that candle. Beautiful accent piece and absolutely free. I love it, and I hope it inspired you to do something similar. DIY number 2. Now y'all probably recognize this. This is a coffee can, and of course I picked the most gigantic one I could find because I wanted to have difficulty under the camera filming it. I'm using pewter gray, granite gray, and black, 3 colors, and I'm doing an aged metal, to be clear. I'm not doing galvanized. That's a different technique, and you're going to see me doing a different technique than you would do if you wanted to galvanize it. And the first thing I'm going to do is put the pewter gray on, because you got to knock down that shine to even begin to look like you're, an old piece of metal. I will also say you don't have to pick a large coffee can like I did. You can choose any can. I mean, this is definitely a one size fits all. Any can, you can duplicate this process, this craft, everything. You can make it miniature all the way up to the biggest can you can find in the world. It all works. And there you'll need the pattern for the spout. And I'm showing you what the pattern looks like more or less. Make sure you measure it up against your coffee can so it fits nice and snug as possible. I'm using Brilliant Aluminum by Krylon. Now, I do want to recommend, this is a blotting technique, and this has been around forever. I did a set of countertops years ago using this technique. But if you want to do aged metal or galvanized metal, just like wood, you got to start with black poster board. I recommend that you do. Again, black gives some kind of depth and richness that just adds more authenticity to the final results. Now, I thought, oh, I'll miss this one with a bit of white and I'll get some white in there. It was a waste of paint. Save your paint, because I did a test run on just plain black. It looked identical, so waste of time. But this is a great technique for aged metal. Now, if you want galvanized metal, you need to go one step further and draw those little amoebas on it, but great technique for aged metal. There it is. It looks excellent. So what you're going to do here is find something stiff. This is a really thick, stiff paper towel roll, the center. You can use anything round, and you're going to gradually curl your poster board, because if you go too fast, you're going to get creases, and that's going to give it away that your craft piece is fake. So you can see me now gradually going down smaller, and the reason you can't use small real quick again is because you'll get a crease. So you start with a bigger roll, then a smaller roll, until finally you can glue it to where you want it to be without any creases. And I just hot glued mine. That worked fine. And if you plan on trying any of these crafts, please let me know in the comments, or if you have any suggestions. I always love hearing from you guys. And on the bottom where it's going to meet the can, you're going to need to bend it just a little bit. Don't worry if it tears, because you're not going to see it, but you need to ease it up a little bit so it can lay flush and flat with your can. So now I'm making the handle. I roll it first and then I press it down to make it flat, but I do double up on the poster board, because if you do just one layer poster board, it's going to look too thin and look fake. And I'm doing the same process where I'm just slowly creasing it, slowly rolling it, so that we don't get any creases or any wrinkles. Perfect. And now I'm just doing the exact same process as I did with the can, because it has to match, of course. I'm going to do it to the spout and to the handle. So you're going to see me do about 4 to 5 different layers of paints, with the pewter gray, black, then the light gray, then the pewter gray again, and they're never completely drying in between. They're all kind of blending in. I used to do makeup. I mentioned that in one of my videos. I used to make makeup, and that helps out a lot when you're doing crafts. I also do hair, and just sharing a little knowledge we know about hair, most of you probably already know, but when you see someone with brown hair, it's never just brown. That the hair is made up of so many different colors in there that give you the final color brown. So, hair's never one dimension. It's always many dimensions, which is why if you just get an artificial color of brown and slap it on your hair, or if you've seen someone do that, it looks really flat, it has no shine and no sparkle, and it's not giving off any other colors. It's because it doesn't have any other colors in there. So it's really important, when you dye your hair, that you use, I guess the best method really is to have different colors woven in so that it looks like a natural brown. But anyway, nature in general tends to be multidimensional, and it's the same thing with metal. If you guys just do 1 or 2 layers of paint, trust me, you're going to be unhappy. It's not going to look real, and everyone's going to know it's fake, and you're going to wonder what you did wrong. So it's a lot of work, but it's fun. Crafting is fun. It's relaxing. And if you do all of the different layers, you're going to get a very believable, very authentic result. And the final trick to doing faux metal or faux aged metal is you always have to add an iridescent silver on top. And it doesn't matter what color iridescent or pearlescent or whatever. And you use paper towels. That works great. Don't do a sponge because you'll end up with air bubbles and little square marks, and again you'll be unhappy. So stick with a crumpled up paper towel, crumpled up Kleenex. Kleenex leaves hair behind. Use a paper towel, you'll be happy. And just add that iridescence all over where you painted, and you're heading in the right direction. It's gonna look good. And as I mentioned in previous videos, big fan of the carbon paper because it's ink, and back in the day they were using mostly ink, some paint, but I think I read somewhere it was mostly ink. So I'm a big fan of carbon paper and the ink look. And also, you guys, I always, whenever I can, just put the paper up to the computer screen and trace out the words, because invariably, no matter how careful you trace out your words, even when you print them up, you're going to need to make corrections when you finally lift up that paper. So it's a waste of ink for me anyway. That's my opinion. You guys want to print it out, you can, but I always end up having to make corrections anyway, so I just save the ink. My kitty's in here with me. If you can hear him right now, he's talking. But I just save the ink and trace it right off the computer screen, and it works great. I'm using E6000 and it works this time. Now I am going to say the fumes from E6000 are toxic. I've got a ventilator mask on, and it's not toxic once it dries unless you plan on eating it. But if you don't have a mask, please make sure you're sitting with plenty of ventilation, or use a glue with less fumes like super glue. And of course, make sure you are generous with the hot glue, and don't worry if it shows, because you're not going to see it. Now I've got a water can out in my garage. It's not cute like this at all. I mean, it's actually like a modern day regular old water can, and it's rusted and old, and so I use that as a template or guideline for what this should look like if I'm trying to get it to look real. And I've decided to go ahead, because I want it to look old, and corrode it. So here I am, I'm trying to figure out how to cover the seam or how to add some more realism, and I try like a wire like this, and I know absolutely not. So I end up thinking, aha, spackling, and that works like a charm. Oh my gosh, it was pretty much dried up and old, and I made it work. I added water. It worked great. I go ahead and I fill in all the seams where the spout is, where the handle is, everywhere there is a seam, even up on the spout area where I glued the poster board together and there's a seam. I put some spackling in there. Works great. Now you could use caulking, I'm sure. You could use silicone, nail filler, any kind of filler you have at home. And you guys, I'm entertaining the idea maybe that toothpaste, if you have that old-fashioned toothpaste, it's white, that might even work in a pinch, but I would do a test run first, and I think it would probably take like 2 or 3 days to dry thoroughly, but I think that might even work. So, I'm just giving you different suggestions because we're not really supposed to be going shopping anywhere right now, but, I tried glue. Glue didn't quite give the realism. And I will say one thing, the spackling added so much strength that I actually forgot this thing was fake at one point when I was taking pictures of it, and I picked it up from the handle and it didn't break or anything. It just picked up, but it was amazing. So if you want extra durability, go for the spackling. And I just remembered as I'm watching this video, I did not use E6000 for the handle, which is even more remarkable that I could pick it up and it didn't break off. That says a lot for the spackling, because I'm pretty sure without that spackling that handle would have come off. But apparently I have to tell you now that, you know, hot glue for the handle is enough. Because I remember at the time thinking, this is for decorative purposes only, I won't be carrying it around. And then I went and I picked it up. So, yep, there I go with the spackling. Like I said, if you have something like that, I'm positive caulking would work. In fact, I have that too. So I thought, well, if the spackling doesn't, you know, soften up with water, I'm just going to use caulking. It would have worked the same. And of course, I'm painting it with the pewter gray to get it to match. And I'm just going to go through the process now of aging it and getting it to match. And here's where we are right now. So I'm adding the iridescent silver. And I choose chocolate sprinkle for this because, believe it or not, that actually looked more like rust than the burnt umber this time. And I just used a little Q-tip. And everywhere where the metal would have been fused together, just like my water can outside, I rusted it. And I start my process of making everything look corroded and old and rusted and used. Now, I thought I was so smart using those little pearl buttons for fake nails, but I've actually seen a couple YouTubers doing this, so it's not, you know, it's not an original idea. A lot of people can see the use for those. They're great for that. With foam board, I use carpet tacks. That's great because you can puncture foam board, but with other surfaces where you can't and you need it to have like a little nail in, these are great. And you can paint them whatever color you want them to be. And I'm just showing you I did all four. Look at that. It looks so awesome. You know what? I had a certain expectation for this craft, and I can honestly say it surpassed my expectations. So I was getting really excited because I'll tell you, up close and personal, you cannot tell this baby's not real. And I should mention here, the very last and final detail was to do thin little ribbons of black everywhere at the deepest part of where the connection of real metal would be to add to the corrosion look. And here it is, and I love this. Of course, I was just saying that. It surpassed my expectations. I couldn't be happier. It looks so real in real life. I don't know if the camera picks it up because I have kind of a slanted vision because I see it in real life, so I can't tell, but it's amazing. It's in the window in my house. I'm so happy. If you guys do not have poster board, try a gift box lid or even cardstock paper. Maybe if you pile 5 or 6 of those up, aim for poster board thickness. But this craft was absolutely free. You can't beat free. I had so much fun doing it, and I hope I inspired you guys to try it too. DIY number 3. Now here's a pretty little shape, and whenever you see things like this, please keep it because we will probably craft with it at some point. These are really valuable shapes when it comes to crafting. And of course, I'm going to point out the things that make it look fake, the things you have to get rid of. There's that seam. You've got to sand that down. You've got to sand the design down. And of course, you got to move that ugly lid top. So I'm just using a utility knife and being dangerous with it because I could have sliced my thumb. But I got it off. And I took my trusty little Ryobi sander again and sand the top down because that would also look fake if you don't do that. And it comes out looking great. It's smooth, everything's real looking, and we're ready to go. Now I start off giving it my DIY Holly Humble chalk paint, but I don't know what's wrong with me because I forgot that I have this. So if you have spray paint, you guys use that. Don't get the brush strokes, because unfortunately I did do 2 coats, but I do have some brush strokes. You can't see it unless you're right up close, and I'm still thrilled with it. But it would have been a lot easier if I had just done that. And there's my traceable off my computer screen. It's just a cute little saying that I picked, and I'm going to put it on the front here, just centering it. And I'm using carbon paper again. Now I was a little impatient and didn't let the paint dry all the way, so look what happens when I take the carbon paper off. And instead of being angry, I'm checking out going, this is cool, because I remember old vintage enamel actually has that. When it's getting old, it wears down where you can see black through it. It doesn't just have chips. So I take the carbon paper and I start to go crazy and rub it all over it. Now I do take some white paint later and kind of sponge and soften areas that are too dark, but that happy little mistake gave me a great creative idea that should be included when you're doing vintage enamelware. Sometimes it looks good, unless you don't want it. But my mother has some vintage enamelware and it has that where it's darkened spots. So it's all good for me. So I go about doing the top of making it look old and chipped, and you can already see I've mellowed out the black marks now. It's painted white, and I'm just adding little chips here and there. You're going to need a sharp utility knife to cut some aluminum cans. Cut the top off first, then down the side, and then the bottom. Keep the bottom and cut it like I'm showing you here. You will need 6 cans altogether for this craft. Go ahead and make yourself some templates for petals. You'll need 3, 1 large, medium, and small. And then you're going to cut out 3 cardboard circles. I do recommend you wear gloves for this craft as well. I didn't at first, but I gave in. I didn't cut myself, but it just felt like I might, so I took precaution, and I suggest you guys do too. So you're going to glue petals then in between each one of those spaces like I'm showing you here on the video. You'll start with your 6 big petals at the bottom, and then you'll do 6 more petals in between the gaps, and then you'll do the small petals the same way in between each of the creases of the medium petals. I hope you're staying with me here. Go ahead and glue the middle down. Now I used hot glue, but I did end up tearing the middle off and adding E6000 and hot glue just to make it really, really durable. I think you guys should too, because there is some pressure with the curling. It's like it wants to pop back up, so you do need some stronger adhesive. I painted 1 green, pink, and purple. I actually like the way the purple one came out. It was kind of streaky like a glaze, but I didn't worry about any imperfections. You guys don't worry about it, because these are going to be galvanized and you won't notice any of that by the time we galvanize it. So I'm going ahead here and I'm adding some dimension with purple. Just adding different colors like you would see in nature, where the flowers have shadows and darker and lighter colors. And that's what we have when we're all done. And then you take yellow and you're going to sponge it on purpose so that it's textured and it looks all marshmallowy and squishy like a real flower would. You know, you don't want it to be flat, you want it to have texture. And I'm using burnt umber there just to add some more shadow and dimension so it looks like a real center, well, hopefully kind of like a real center of a flower. And here I'm using pewter gray. Now this is a nice trick I love. When I want to do any kind of mini galvanizing, I love using blush brushes. This blush brush was only $1 at the 99-cent only store, and I think it does great little mini galvanizing dots, so you guys might want to try that out. And here's one of those cup noodles or lunch, whatever, those unhealthy things that are full of sodium, and I thought they would make great plant pots. So I cut them in half and I paint them with 1 coat of black paint to make sure all the words are covered, and I give it 2 coats dry brushing of white paint, because I was going to do just 1 coat, but then I looked at it, it's still a little darker than I wanted. I wanted these to be a bit brighter, and so I go ahead and give it a 2nd coat of white paint. And here's something I made on my computer with labels and a farmhouse font. It is going to be now on an image online. It's a website that hosts images, so the link is below my description box. You guys can now download this and do the exact same thing if you want. You can adjust the size to whatever size you want. but I take burnt umber there and I stain it. And here's some poster board I'm going to cut out for the back of these flowers, you know, the picture. I forget what that's called. Somebody in the comments tell me what that's called. Whatever you mat this on for the picture. But I'm using burnt umber here to edge the flowers and make them look old and rustic and, you know, aged, because these are going to be galvanized summer flowers, but they're still in the farmhouse theme. And here I am dry brushing the foam board, and I'm moving so quick and my brush is so dry that the board never really gets wet from the paint, and that way I don't have to deal with any curling, because I don't want to have to paint the back of the board this time. But there's actually about 5 to 6 layers of paint on there. You just have to make sure each time you do it, it's very, very dry. And here I am measuring and scoring it with a pencil so that I get those nice lines going down. And after all that, painting my flower pots white, I end up having to make them brown. I kind of stain them a little bit because my original plan was to have a dark brown background, but I switched it to the white background. And here's 3 skewers, and I just painted a nice natural dark like stem green that you would find on the flowers during summer. But you can paint it any green that you want. And I'm using an egg carton here to cut the bottom of the egg cups off of, because these flowers need to be elevated. I realize if I push them down, it's going to flatten out all of those curls in the petals, and then I get flat flowers. I just dry brushed this frame that I was going to throw away with a bit of territorial beige from Apple Barrel paint, and I darken the leaves that I steal from those Valentine Day hearts. Those aren't really my style anymore, so I wasn't going to use those either. And I take some black paint and age the plant pots a little bit. I'm going to glue the egg cups on the top of the skewer stems, and these will help hold my flowers up. It works really well too, you guys. The petals keep their curls and the 3D effect is really pretty. You don't need to use foam board either to mat it on. It's just, I don't know if you noticed, my cat chewed the left side of that foam board, so I was going to throw it away or use it just for filler. But you can use obviously anything that's firm. And I'm just aging around the labels here because I love farmhouse. I love the rustic look, and I love aging pretty much almost everything. So I'm just Mod Podging everything on and sealing everything up and doing the finishing touches. I'm going to apply 2 thin strips of hot glue to attach the flower pots to the bottom of the base. And I'm doing the same thing with the leaves. I'm sure you can see what I'm doing, but just in case, that's my last little set of leaves right there. I decided to use some scrap burlap and cut it in strips, and then just push it down where the dirt would be, and that turns out to be super cute. And I aged this little butterfly with burnt umber. You're going to need an egg carton, and you were going to need a paper towel roll, but just ignore that. I'm going to try and make a succulent. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I actually went to price those because I needed some extra ones for staging for these videos, and they are so expensive. I think 3 were like $18 if you want them in the size that I'm going to make right now. And I realized when I looked at this egg carton that it had this thick, really good, you know, look to it that would be a great imitation for those big thick leaves that the succulents have, because you can't get that with a toilet roll. You certainly can't get it with coffee filters. It's a very unique look with the leaves. So at least some of the leaves on the, I mean, succulents come in different looks and shapes and sizes. Some of them are so thick, you guys, I think you probably have to use the bead recipe that I make beads with. You could probably try doing that. But for this type of succulent, these leaves turn out to be absolutely perfect. So I go ahead and I cut them out, and then I use this color. And if you watch my previous video for the Look for Less, I talk about a color that's like root beer. It's kind of like a purpley root beer color, but I knew it would be perfect on this green to imitate that reddish color that this succulent has on the edge of its leaves. And then here is that brush again that's full of Mod Podge. It dried, I could never get it out, but I love this brush for this technique, because if you put white paint on and then try to get the white paint off, it's super stiff, and when you rub really hard it leaves like this cloudy thing behind. I don't know if you can see that, because real succulents have like that cloud white, like, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, like that cloudy look over them. They're not bright green. And if you do get too much paint on this, if you try this craft, don't panic. You can see me just using my fingers to rub it in and rub it off, and it does the same cloudy look, and it comes out perfect. I mean, this is a great technique. And this jar is a minced garlic jar, you guys. Oh, it's hard to get the smell out, I admit, but here's the trick. I ended up spraying bleach in it and leaving it out in the sun, and that did the trick. It just smelled like glass after that. So I just thought it was such a cute shape for a little mini plant pot. I've been saving that jar for a while. And here I am using the bottom of the egg cup again. I'm going to call it an egg cup because I don't know what it's called, but there's the formation that you're going to need to have at the end. So if you need to pause the video so you can kind of check that out, it'll show you how many you need, approximately the sizes, you know, the cascading sizes. And you're going to start by gluing your first set of leaves on the inside of the cup. You can see what I'm doing there. You're going to use 6 of them, and you're going to start on the inside. Now you will end up doing the outside at the very end, but to begin with, you do the inside. And these leaves also curl really easy. The only thing you have to be careful of when you curl them around your big finger, like not anything thin like a pencil, because you'll crack the paint. You know, in some places I noticed the paint cracked, and I just flipped it over and used the other side and then repainted it. But they do curl, and then they hold their shape, which was really surprising too. So I was really pleased with them, actually. These, I never thought of egg cartons, but they make really excellent little petals, and they look, because they're kind of thick and juicy looking, they make it look alive, and just, it was, anyway, you'll see. And just like with the aluminum can petals that we made, you want to glue those petals in between the other petals each time. So now you'll see that I start putting the ones on the outside edge, the very bottom where I talked about, you know, in the beginning. I was going to save that till the end. Maybe you guys can do it differently, but for me, I just found that I was able to get a better feel for where they're supposed to be so that it looks like an identical imitation if I saved this step to last. And I'm just taking some jute twine here from Walmart and wrapping this up to cover it. You know, I don't want people to know it's a jar. That's a nice top for it. And then I use a flame to get rid of the strings. So you're going to need this shape container, and I'm showing you what needs to go because it looks fake. Now I didn't realize when you cut off that, I guess it's a lip that folds over the top, it's connected to all these multiple little pieces of plastic to make it firm, and it's a nightmare. I managed to get it all off, but it's just too flimsy and it looks terrible. So I go online to find evidence that metal reel planters, you know, do have the edges. And I'm so happy I find some that look very similar, so we can go ahead and do this craft. So this is the second try, and I go around the edge carefully. The lines have to be perfectly straight. This is sped up, but take your time, you guys, because if you have crooked lines, that's a dead giveaway that it's fake. So you want things to look nice and expensive. The lines have to be perfectly straight, so you have to have a sharp knife. But I remove it so no one knows it was ever there. Now here, I'm using Krylon in aluminum. I love that spray paint, and I just give these guys one coat of paint. They cover really easy, but see those little webs? That's what I was trying to cut off before. I'm showing you now what I have to contend with, because we have to get rid of that. So I pull out my spackling. These things have to be covered because, you know, they give it away that this is, you know, trash or not real or not metal. You know, you just have to make it go away. And I still have that thing in the front that kind of goes up at an angle, which I will cover because I don't really like that either. And I did a light sand, but it was more just to remove loose pieces. You don't really need to sand it, so that wasn't necessary. And I use 3 colors there. I'm using the iridescent silver, pewter gray, and black, all in apple barrel paint. And I'm just taking an old paintbrush. Now I use old gooked up paintbrushes for galvanizing. I prefer this because the bristles are kind of spread out and chunky. They actually leave like nice little chunky like dots and amoeba shapes that are miniature. Speaking of amoeba shapes, I take my sponge and I'm doing the actual amoeba shapes, because real galvanized steel, in fact I think you can't galvanize metals unless they have iron in them. So like the stuff we buy in the craft stores, I think it's aluminum, so that's actually faux galvanizing. That's not even real. Real galvanizing does have the dark spots on them, which used to be considered, you know, cosmetically unattractive, and now of course we're all trying to get that look. And I end up having to do 3 coats of the iridescent silver over that to tone those down, because I don't want them super dark. I want them to be, you know, when you galvanize steel, the level of darkness with those changes. It's never white, but it does go from like being super dark gray to being like a medium dark gray. And here's a Dollar Tree checker from the checker set. This is my solution, you guys, to covering up the center. And I'm using carbon paper, my favorite method. And I love carbon paper so much, you guys. This time I'm actually going to color in the numbers. I'm not even going to bother with paint or a marker. I want it to look old school and have, like, you know, when you color in the carbon paper, you get these lines already and streaks going through that makes it look like you dry brushed it, so it already looks distressed. See, right there? And so it already looks antiqued, and it's perfect. And I just glue those down into the checkers. I take a black Sharpie. I try to go around the edge that way, and I realize it's not going to quite work. I have to use a paintbrush to really get into the creases, you know, and give it a nice border. And here I'm just taking a mix of burnt umber and black paint and gently patting it around the edges to age it a bit. I'm going to seal that in with some Mod Podge and glue it on the front of my butter container to cover that arch, and it works beautifully to conceal that. And then I'm going to go ahead and hot glue just some twine on the back of that faux wood plank. And because these are so light, I only need hot glue to glue them down on top of the wood plank as well. I mean, they're on there, stuck on there for dear life. And I just have all my different spring flowers from Walmart. You're going to need a pattern of a cutting board, a picture of your choosing, and 3 pieces of cardboard, and some spackling paste or joint compound. Now you can get the spackling at the Dollar Tree. I ordered mine in bulk, but you know, the Dollar Tree one works just fine. And you're going to go ahead and cut out the pattern there. Now I will have this pattern in my description box as a free printable. Just click on that link and it will take you there, and you can print up the one that I used. But you're just going to trace it, cut it out, 3 of them, glue them all together like you can see me doing here, because obviously a cutting board has to be a decent thickness. It's not going to be wafer thin, so we're going to start with that. You glue it together nice and tight. And now I'm, you know, pretty good at cutting stuff. For you guys that watch my videos, you've seen me use my circular saw. I got a whole bunch of power tools, and so, you know, I'm getting better. But even with my new skills, I am not up to cutting a small cutting board, so I made this out of cardboard to make it very user-friendly so everyone can do this craft. And here I'm just taking some sharp tweezers and I'm poking a hole through the middle, and then I'm just going to cover it with some spackling. You can use the Dollar Tree spackling. It works really, really well. This is just what I had on hand, and I just use a spare piece of cardboard to spread my spackling. And I'm going to dry it just a little bit, just till it's kind of tacky, and then I dip my finger in some water and smooth the edges, and this will save you at the end when you go to sand. You won't have to sand so much. Now it is dry enough where I can gently hold it without leaving any indentations, and that allows me to finish the handle of my little cutting board. So here, while it's still wet, I'm taking an old stick from a paintbrush that fell off. I actually use this tool a lot, you guys. Hold on to everything. You never know when you're going to need it. Poking the hole through it. Now this is the next day. The next day I sand, and I just sand really lightly and fast to round out all of the edges and to get rid of any bumps or lumps or too many little grooves. I mean, you're just perfecting it so that it looks like a wooden board, because the next thing you're going to do is stain it. So we're going to be using a stain that in previous videos I was totally lukewarm about, and I take it back. I'll tell you, I grabbed this on a whim because I thought, yeah, I want to stain this cutting board. Yeah, let's slap the stain on it. If it doesn't work, we'll just do it all over again. Because that's who I am. I'm very impulsive when I craft. I discovered a lot of neat things that way. Turns out this product on a smooth surface, and this is kind of a matte surface, even though it's, you know, it's smooth, it's matte. There it is, I'm showing you. It produces the most beautiful faux wood grain in one step, you guys. I was shocked. So now I am hot for this stuff. It's a water-based acrylic, so you can wash it up and clean it up really easy. It's not a wax. Wax does the same trick, you guys, so if you have wax, do that. But I'm guessing you could paint over this because it's water-based acrylic, which means you could change your DIYs up back and forth. You could make it white paint, then wood, then white paint, then wood. You could go back and forth. Lots of possibilities there. So, and it was super slippery. It went a long way. A little bit goes a long way. So if you're interested, I'm not sponsored. I'm not sponsored by anybody. The link is below in my description box. This is a photo from my friend's house that I miniaturized, and I'm just Mod Podging it on top of my little cutting board. Now this is a really easy one, and this is a great way to use up those little scrap pieces of wood that you have that, you know, you don't really want to throw away. But I never throw away anything, not if you're watching my channel, you guys, because I will always come up with something you can use something for. So what does that mean? Something. Anyway, so this is my free wood. A little bit of scrap here. I'm making a small sign because it's a great width for the 3-tier tray. And here's my design. I designed the Life is Better in the Country, and the windmill I got off of the Microsoft, I think it's called clip art, but this will be a free printable for you down below if you want to do the exact same sign as me. I leave free printables below whenever possible in my description box. Now, I did have a couple people ask me what a description box is and where it's located. So I want to go over this really quick, just so everybody knows where the description box is, because it can be confusing if you don't use YouTube a lot and you find it in a Google search, if you're a blog person or whatever. So on a cell phone, tablet, or iPad, there's going to be a little gray arrow in the upper right hand corner there. You just tap on it and it will drop down an information box that gives you more information about the video that you're watching on YouTube. And it's with every YouTube video, there's a description box. Some have more information, some have less, but they're helpful to read if you're interested and you have questions, and maybe sometimes if you look there, you'll find the answer. On a PC or laptop, you're going to click on the words that say show more, and that will drop down that same description box. So I hope that helps you guys out. On this particular one, I do need to use my Sharpie and the ultra fine tip Sharpie, as well as paint, to get in all the lettering and kind of finish this sign, because it is a petite sign. Since I'm making it for the 3-tier tray, I just have to kind of do a little mix and match act on this, but it all ends up matching and looking really good at the end. Now this next DIY is definitely a trash to treasure. I'm using those 2 containers that somehow came home from restaurants and to-go boxes when my kids would eat out, and a prescription bottle, but any bottle will do. I think I had something to do with heartburn in this one. And I am using E6000 and hot glue because I do need a really strong hold for this. It's those 2 little plastic mini bowls or whatever they are actually quite heavy, so I need strong adhesive, and I bet you can guess what we're going to make. And if you guessed a milk can, you are right. And here I am showing you another option in case some of you want to take it down a notch and really go small and miniature. This is an antihistamine bottle and the cough medicine plastic cups that come on top of like cough syrups, but I'm showing you, you will have to cut 2 of them in half and then glue them together, and it would have to be cut really nice and neat and straight, or you'd be able to tell. But if you want to go really small, fill that container up with some rocks and you can make it really super tiny for these 3-tier trays. So here's the Dollar Tree cookie tray or baking pan out of foil that they have, great for farmhouse decor. And I'm just cutting it and folding it. I am doubling it up to make it extra thick and bulky because these are going to be the handles for my milk can. I do continue to need strong adhesive, so I do a mix of E6000 and hot glue to get these on the bottle. And then I go around the bottom rim and just secure it with more hot glue, take it outside, and I'm spraying it with that wonderful color aluminum from Krylon. And of course, I'm going to start the process now of making this metal look old and oxidized. I'm not really going for a galvanized look. I'm just going again for something that looks like it's been around for a long time outside on a farm and it's gotten oxidized from the weather. The three colors that I'm using is the pewter gray from Apple Barrel Paint, black, and an iridescent silver, and I'm just taking a combination of a paintbrush that is older and kind of spread out. Those work really good for making things look oxidized and or galvanized. And a Kleenex, I'm blotting it here, or a paper towel, and a sponge, and I'm just working on it until I kind of get the look that I want. I'm starting off with the pewter gray first, then I do some black, then I go back over the pewter gray, and I'm just layering it now with the iridescent silver all over, just covering the whole thing until I get a look that I'm happy with. If you want a really detailed tutorial on how to do aged metal, I go really into that in my video called Farmhouse Seriously Free DIYs. It's the first one in the series. Look for the little thumbnail that has a water can on it. That's the one where I go into it. But I'm doing something similar here. I'm just doing, on a smaller scale. And lastly, I am going to use a little bit of burnt umber to put some faux rust around this, just to make it look, older and more distressed. And I also have these little mini pearls. There they are, the adhesive pearl wrap from the Dollar Tree. They also sell pearl buttons. Whenever you guys see this at the Dollar Tree, please make sure you pick them up if you love doing faux metal like this, like milk cans or any other kind of farmhouse stuff, because they're so easy to apply and they add so much realism to faux metal. They imitate the little bolts. I think that's what they use to solder the metal together, and they work great. I end up wanting words on this little milk can, and I choose Lokeland Fresh. Now, I did make and design this myself, and there's a free printable down in my description box. I forgot to mention I also have a free printable for the little mini books as well, so if you guys want to just download exactly what I did, you can. I try to do that whenever I can or whenever I design it, so that you guys can duplicate it if you want to. And if you don't know where that description box is, I give a detailed explanation and instructions on the first part of this series. So check out the first video and you'll find out how to find your description box. And thank you to those that thanked me for doing that as well. So for this craft, you're going to be using some poster board, a tomato paste can, and another part of the Dollar Tree baking foil dish there, the disposable ones that you could buy for cookie trays or a baking tray, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so I just roll the poster board up into a spout. You can see what I'm doing there, and it's in a funnel shape, and then I cut it at an angle so that it's flush with the can. And for this craft, I used just hot glue to glue the spout on, and it worked fine. So I was really happy about that. It stayed really, really well. I think because it was lightweight, I just didn't need anything else. And here I am cutting what's going to be the handle. So you'll see me do it right here. I'm going to use my scissors to smooth it out so we don't have that distinct Dollar Tree baking dish design. And then I'm going to fold it in once and then fold it on top of itself. So you see there's 3 layers there, and that's what gives a lot of realism because it's more like a real metal handle. And I smooth it down again to really crease everything and make it look really nice and strong. And with this you can just curl it and bend it and shape it until you get it. And you just have to kind of keep playing with it until you get it the right size so that it easily fits onto that little side can there. And just a little bit of hot glue, you guys, it works like a charm. Even on the handle, which is shiny, that surprised me because both of those surfaces are shiny and it worked beautifully. And here I am, you see that blue spatula there? I get a ton of questions about that. That is from the Dollar Tree. It's found in the makeup section. It's a makeup spatula, it's supposed to be. And I'm like 99.9% sure it's 100% silicone because I have exposed it to extremely hot temperatures and it hasn't even left a mark. So since I cook with silicone spatulas, it's got the same feeling and it performs the same way, and it's amazing for hot glue. I know they make crafting ones, but they're too big and I don't like them. They're clunky. This one is small, it's like a second finger. I love it. And someone wrote to me about 3 weeks ago, she left a comment, and she was so excited because she found one at the Dollar Tree, which means we all have a shot still at getting one of those if you're interested. I'm even looking for another one in case this one breaks because I have never used anything that is so helpful when it comes to crafting and not burning your finger. I was using craft sticks, but I end up having to throw them away because they're covered in hot glue. I was just wasting craft supplies. So if you find one of those little spatulas, pick one up if you craft a lot with hot glue because they're fantastic. And here I am adding a little bit of burnt umber at the seams there where the metal, if it was real, would be soldered, just to add a little realism. And this time I'm painting the bolts on. I'm just doing little dots. Now only because I know where I'm going to situate this particular 3-tiered decoration. It's in the shadows, the handle, and no one's ever going to see that part. But if you guys know that yours is going to be out and turned where everyone can see it all the time, I would recommend that you use those little sticky fake bolt things that I show you in part 2. They work wonderful for faux bolts, and they add so much realism. So there I am. Look me up on Instagram and Pinterest, you guys. Follow me over there. We have a board going too on Pinterest that celebrates your crafts. So when I inspire you and you send me a photo, I share it over there. And it's really neat. Go check it out. I love when you guys do it. It's so much fun and it helps us stay in touch with each other so we can kind of see what everybody's doing. I think that's fun. And here is a printable that I've made and designed. It just says cut daily. And I burned the edges to make it look old. It's not old enough looking, so now I'm taking some burnt umber and staining it up a little bit. And I'm going to glue it down using regular old school glue. You don't need anything fancy. This is also a free printable down below in my description box. If you click the link, it'll take you to it and you can print it up. I'm going to need to seal it up with Mod Podge, as you can see me doing here, because paint does have a tendency to chip off of shiny surfaces like metal and glass, and I do recommend, for longevity, that you go ahead and seal this one up with Mod Podge. For this craft, you're going to need a cylinder-shaped item, Any cylinder shape will work. I'm just showing you some examples here. They sell these at the Dollar Tree. And the next one coming up, the Quaker Oats. If you're in the mood to make a big piece of birch wood, you could use that. Even the glasses next to it that it shows with the oatmeal in it would work. Anything that's a cylinder shape. Today I'm using a tin can and some masking tape. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is taking the masking tape and wrapping it around my tin can. And this is probably one of the few times in life you can be as sloppy as you want with the tape and not worry about it. In fact, the aim is to be a little bit sloppy here. Just make sure that you're getting it right up to the edge of the can on the bottom and the top, or whatever you choose to use as a cylinder shape. So we're actually creating the bark of the wood. And I'm moving kind of quick and rough, not worrying about it wrinkling up, just pressing those wrinkles down as I go. And I'm going at an angle just to cover the entire can. And you want to get rid of all the little bumps because the cans have the little bumps on them, those little, I don't know what they're called, those little, I don't know, lines, I guess, ridges maybe, that go around the can, and you can see me smoothing it there. And I end up putting about 3 layers on the bottom and the top so that it kind of makes it, you know, the middle pops out a little bit. So you're trying to make the surface as even as you can so that it doesn't have any indentations. And I'm showing you up close all those crazy lines. They almost look like veins going through it. And you just keep applying the tape. See how on the right side it's a little more transparent? You can see the can through. I'm going to add some more tape there and make sure that everything's covered and uniform in color and pretty level, so when you lay the can down on its side, the sides are pretty even around. You can see here that's what I'm attempting to do. That's why I put more layers on the top and the bottom, because we have that chunky middle. And of course, real wood isn't perfect, so don't stress about this. Just do your best. And now you're going to want to take the back end of your scissors or just something hard like that and rub down those lines so that they're as flat as possible. Then you go ahead and you apply a coat of white paint, and you can be sloppy with this. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can see I'm using an old brush and just putting it on there. The important thing in between each layer that we're going to do is that you dry it. So that's why I show you the blow dryer, to remind you to make sure that it is very dry before you start the next part. Next, you're going to be using a sharp little utility knife or an X-Acto knife or a craft knife like you see me doing here, and you're just going to randomly pick different little veins to shave down. So you're looking for the ones that stick out too much. You know how the tape might bunch up and form almost like a flap there? You don't want a flap. So just turn it sideways, go over it, and you're also going to see me point it downwards with the tip of it and kind of scrape into the little vein thing. So you'll see it right here, and I'm scraping it away to make it flatter, but it also tears the tape open a little bit, and it makes it have that messy look like birch wood has. If you ever see birch wood in real life, the bark is usually kind of thrashed and torn. It's not perfect. So this gives it more authenticity and texture, and it just adds to the whole look. So, and you don't, again, have to do every single one. Just sporadically pick some here and there wherever you think it looks nice. All of today's paints in this video are by Apple Barrel, and the first color we're going to be using is Territorial Beige. You're just dry brushing. That's the only technique we're going to be using in this video, is dry brushing. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it just means use a small, tiny amount of paint on the tip of your brush and paint it really softly across your surface so that you get a look like what you see here. Now the important thing is that you're going to dry in between each step, so that's why I showed you the blow dryer. The next color is Pewter Gray. Same technique. We're going to be dry brushing it really softly all the way around the entire can. The third color is White. And we're going to be dry brushing white across this to blend out and mute the colors softly and create a veil effect over them so that they look really, really kind of blurry and softened. And you don't have to hit every single area with the same amount of white paint. So some areas will have a little more, some areas will have a little less. That gives it nice dimension and makes it look more realistic. The fourth color we're going to be using is burnt umber. Now this color is applied super feather light so that you're only hitting the raised surfaces, like the little veins on the wood here, and that is covered again with some white to mute and soften that up. That's the last final step. Now to make the faux knots on the wood. Now this is super simple. You just dip your finger in some of that pewter gray and blob on some gray little spots wherever you'd like them to be, and then take the burnt umber and draw a frame on them like an eyeball. You're essentially making an eyeball. You can see it right there. They are that simple to make. And lastly, you're going to be taking the color Antique Parchment and going over those little knots to create a little nice softening veil on them as well. Now the reason we're using the Antique Parchment is because at this point the white has so many layers of paint on that it's no longer white. It resembles more of a cream color, so you can't really use white anymore, or it would be too bright and too much of a contrast. And lastly, you're just going to take a regular old pencil and start drawing those little lines all over the birchwood. Just cover the whole can with them, and that's it. And there you have it. Doesn't it look awesome? I love this craft. The next step I like to do is finish off the top with a bit of twine for a little rustic touch, but you certainly can skip this step. You can also add layers of foam board on the top and make it taller as long as you take the tape up the top as well and cover the sides of the foam board. You can change the height of these cans to make them less recognizable as a can. And the really neat thing about this craft that I love is you don't have to, make just birch wood. This technique would work for any kind of wood, depending on what colors of paint you choose. So if you want to make a cute little Yule log craft, or just put some fake wood in a faux fireplace, it's really sky's the limit with this craft, which is why I thought it was so much fun, and it is a fantastic way to recycle cans. Now, I like to leave one end open because I actually flip these and use them for super pretty vases, and boy do they make absolutely stunning vases for flowers. Now I wanted this size for a craft I'm doing in my upcoming video. I didn't worry about it looking like a can because when it goes together with the whole craft, it definitely is not recognizable as a can. This is a piece of wood. I drilled 2 holes on either side I'm showing you, and at first I thought, oh, it doesn't matter, those other holes will make it look more rustic and distressed, but unfortunately once I painted it with the homemade chalk paint, there's my cat, and they become too pronounced. So I do end up taking some spackling and filling those in. And if you're interested in my chalk paint recipe or how to make it, I leave that link below my description box and at the end of the video. But this wood is actually probably about 1.5 inches in depth and maybe 7 inches across. It's a really big, heavy piece of wood, so it's not going to be an easy thing to craft with, but you know me, I'll take free wood and I'll take it in any way. So I take this, and you'll notice also that I'm switching the camera angles. That's to make it more comfortable on your eyes again, because I noticed there was something weird about the depth perception in certain angles because these crafts are really big. So here I'm, hold on, struggling with my cat. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He's trying to jump on top of my computer. I'm so sorry. We had a little bit of a ruckus here. Okay, everything's back under control now. He's where he wants to be. Sorry about that. If you heard a lot of banging, he was trying to hop on top of my computer arm more. He likes to be on the top there, and he's a big cat and very clumsy, so I had to stop and help him get up. But anyway, I was going to do the word country cottage here, and it ends up being too big. So I take the C from the country, the U and the R, and I'm going to make it our cottage. Using carbon paper, my favorite way to transfer. And I'm just going to makeshift that C into an O. For those of you that were asking me where are the printables for what I'm doing, I have been uploading them to an online site so that you can go ahead and download and print up the exact same thing if you want to recreate it, and then you can adjust the size however you want it to be, and that's below in my description box. So here is the painter's pen, and I love it for this reason. Now you notice I'm not using it to fill in hardly anything, and that's because it's more expensive to buy paint in a painter's pen. I'm just outlining all of the letters because clean, crisp edges are so important if you want a sign to look expensive and, you know, professional. So after I get all of my edges done nice and clean, I just take cheap old apple barrel paint, gotta love apple barrel paint, and fill it in with black paint. Before I forget too, the image that I uploaded obviously doesn't have my makeshift O, but it has a prettier O in my opinion, but both those are nice. I like the O better I uploaded, so it's all good. But I just want to let you guys know that if you wanted the O that I have, then you would need to print up 2 of the cottages, or just the C there, and print that up and then makeshift it like I did. I made this sign because it stands up on its side. It's going to stand on a little ledge on the backyard fence to discourage my cat from trying to jump on that ledge when he tries to make his great escape out of my backyard. It has the 2 little holes there so I can tie it on so it doesn't fall on him in the process. But that's the story. And here's some white acrylic paint. I'm just dry brushing it on to distress it, make the letters look nice and old and antiqued. And this Mod Podge is actually half water-based polyacrylic and half Mod Podge. I like to kick it up a notch when something's going to be outside because it's exposed to the elements. If you guys have any wood, this craft will be free for you, of course. And here it is. I absolutely love it. Totally charming. For this DIY, I used some scrap wood, but you could easily use layers of cardboard for this particular DIY. You're going to need some foil. The first thing that I did was trace out the shape of a leaf. Now I thought this looked kind of like a palm leaf, but it actually could be any leaf. But this is a craft that gives you a lot of opportunity to be extremely creative and have fun. For example, if you were doing a coastal decor theme, you could easily draw a shell and change up your colors to blues and aquamarines. There's a lot of opportunity here for variety, so just have fun with it. After you're done drawing whatever shape you choose, take your hot glue and trace those patterns in pencil. It's like a template, I guess. Trace your template with hot glue like you see me doing here. I'm just going to cover all of those pencil marks now with hot glue. This doesn't have to be perfect either. In fact, that's kind of the name of the game here. This is a very textured craft, so don't stress if you've got like bubbles or lumps in your hot glue. You're not going to see it at all. Shout out to Casey at Coffee with My Sunshine. I also watch craft videos when I craft sometimes because they're very relaxing and I love watching them too. And her video came up and I saw her do this, and I think she was experimenting with texture, she said in that video, but the final result came out so high-end. She did not give herself enough credit. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I could not wait to try it. So If you haven't checked out her channel, please do. She really is kind of leading the charge here with the trash to treasure videos. I mean, real trash, where she takes recycled items and items from outside. A lot of free crafting in her videos, and I think she's absolutely fantastic, so be sure to check her out. So she said just to use regular glue, and it is just fine. I'm using Dollar Tree glue, in fact, Dollar Tree school glue. And you can see I'm just covering up the wood with the glue. And I'm kind of, when I'm gluing the foil down, pressing gently around where I do the hot glue to make sure that design pops. So don't press too hard because you don't want to totally flatten out your foil, but at the same time, you definitely want those designs to, pop out for the next step when everything's dry. So this is kind of like a paper mache craft, only instead of gluing little pieces of paper down, you're doing it with foil. And you can see there I'm putting glue on top of the foil if I have to overlap. So just make sure that you're generous with your glue. Use lots of glue. You're going to need it on the sides, on the top, anywhere there isn't any glue, where the foil meets the foil, everywhere. And most importantly, have fun. So you're going to see me here in a minute use a little square. There I go. And I'm crinkling it up this way. I'm kind of crunching it. That turns out to be a much better way to do it. The foil doesn't get as tight, I guess. It doesn't get knotted up. It's really hard to undo if you do it in big pieces. So keep it smaller and just go about covering the entire piece of wood. Now, I was almost going to use cardboard. I just didn't have enough right now, but you could easily glue about 4 sheets of cardboard together, or 5, or make it as thick as you want. Because the sides are covered, nobody's going to know what that canvas is under there. So this is a great craft for recycling those Amazon boxes that you guys were asking me what you could do with. So I decided to take a final layer of Mod Podge and put it on the top just to make sure all of those foil pieces stick down, because I don't want them getting loose. She didn't do this. I don't think you have to. I was just a little worried because I'm gifting this to somebody, so I didn't want them to come up. The next step is to take a sponge, a regular sponge. I found that kind of holds more paint and it gets down in the grooves of the foil better. And I'm using the color Territorial Beige here from Apple Barrel Paint, and I'm just covering the whole thing. Now, I'm doing a color blend on this piece. I decided to do that. You don't have to. I just wanted to do Casey did 2 different crafts, so I wanted to do both of them in one, if that makes sense. I wanted to combine it because I liked the looks of both and I couldn't decide. So in the end, I thought, well, I'm just going to do both. So now I'm taking the color Nutmeg from Apple Barrel and I'm putting that on the top. And this is a color called Terracotta. It's from another company. They don't even make that paint anymore, but you can use whatever browns you want. You could see there how I took my paintbrush and turned it sideways and kind of streaked the paint into the other paint. I believe Casey left hers dry. I wanted mine to blend a little more, so I left mine wet. I don't think it matters. I think if it's dry, you'll have a more pronounced color blend. If it's wet, you'll have more of a muted blending effect between the colors, which is what I was going for. And also, don't worry if a little bit of foil is showing, because at the end, when you're done with all your color blending and everything's finished, the foil doesn't show anymore. So you saw me take khaki there from Apple Barrel Paint and tap the top of that leaf just to bring out the design. And I didn't want it to be so light around, I guess, towards the edges there. You can see that I'm touching it up and covering that khaki up just a little bit. And you just use the original colors. Some of them dry even darker because it's like 2 layers of paint, and it just gives it more texture and more dimension. It is an absolutely gorgeous craft. I hope the camera does it justice. It looks almost like leather, so high-end looking. I absolutely love this. So my sister loves this milk. I decided to try it, but my husband actually washed it out for me because he said, that's an absolutely beautiful container. And I said, you're right. So I took this and I cut it out at the top here just to get rid of that lid. And I'm using a Dollar Tree craft knife. I think it comes with 6 or 8 blades. I can't remember, but more than one blade, and it is amazingly sharp. Thank you for all the suggestions you came on and told me about to buy a craft knife. I haven't had a chance yet. So when I was in the Dollar Tree a month ago, I grabbed this and it was shockingly sharp. It's sharper than the one I spent $16 on from Walmart. So if you see one of those craft little knives, make sure you pick them up. It's a great deal. Now I'm taking my glue gun here to gently melt the edge to make it curl inwards so that it doesn't look like a plastic container. And now I'm taking some cuticle clippers just to clip off any unevenness. And, you're just going about making it as even and perfect as you can so it doesn't look like a plastic bottle. And this is what it should look like when you're all done. I took it outside to give it a coat of paint and primer so that everything I paint from this point on will actually stick. And now I'm taking some hot glue on low temperature and making some downward lines. Now I'm going to show you the 3 different looks I get in case some of you like it, just to give you extra ideas, but this isn't actually what I end up doing. And by the way, you can also use an iron to melt the top of this container as well. I didn't want to take mine out, but I've seen people do that where they turn the iron on high and just press it down. You'll get more of an even result, I think. And now I'm using that color terracotta in the paint that is no longer in, they don't make it anymore, but you can use any color you want. It was a brown and black idea. I thought, oh, I'll paint the top and bottom, like this, and then dry brush a little bit, and I thought that was kind of pretty, but I didn't like it. It still looked like plastic. So I decided to paint the whole thing black because black is always high end, right? And this is going to be outside. So I thought, well, we can't leave the glue on there because with the changes of humidity and heat and cold, I was worried the glue would, disengage and be flapping in the wind there, and it would be really embarrassing. And now this is the look we end up with, and I still don't like it. It's a nice look, but it's just not what I was going for. So I put some gold on it, and I definitely don't like it. This doesn't match my decor style at all. So I go back and I'm doing something completely different. I'm putting just a little bit more primer on there to make sure my next process sticks. And I want to try and cover up all of the little grooves and lines from the, I guess, when I peeled the glue off, it lifted some of the paint here and there. So I'm just kind of adding a little extra layer just to get it more even, I guess, for the next process, but I probably didn't really need to do that. I wanted a color that was brown with a bit of maroon in it. So when I mixed paints and I finally got the color I was after, I went ahead and added some baking soda because I'm definitely going to have to add texture. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me because I was holding it and I knew it was plastic, but it just still, to me, and I'd love to hear that in the comments below. I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but it still looked like plastic even when I spray painted it, and I just wasn't happy with that. I wanted it to look expensive. So now I'm texturing it with a very thick baking soda paint mix, and I took the same color, added a bit of white paint, and we're going to put it on the top and bottom, and we're going to kind of do that color blend again, but with the dark color and the light color, and we end up with an absolutely beautiful result. Lots of texture, and you definitely cannot tell it's plastic. I'm totally pleased with how this turns out. So this is my inspiration piece I saw online. It's a little small side table and it's $199. I used 2 coffee cans and an old Frisbee lid that I was going to throw away from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use some pool noodles, but it would have actually been better to use paper towel holders or the center of the, not a holder, I'm sorry, the center of the paper towel like these. But I wanted to do this craft to show you guys how it looks, even though I didn't have enough of the paper towel centers, or you could use foil centers. They just all have to be uniform size. And you also could use a stovetop cover from the Dollar Tree. They're only 50 cents each because you get 2 for $1. You can also use a lid to an old cookie tin. I mean, just be creative and have fun with this one, but you're going to need a top for the top of the little table there. I'm kind of aiming more to make a planter with mine, or you could use it for a little table, but I decided it looks really cute as a planter. So we're starting off measuring those pool noodles and then cutting them down to size. And now I'm going to cut them in half. I started off by thinking I was going to keep them whole, but they were just too big and too round and clunky looking. This is why I say the paper towel rolls would have looked better. Make sure they're the sturdy kind of paper towel, cardboard centers there, because I think if they're too thin, they might bend. So you want those nice strong ones that you get with the higher end paper towels. But I held up, I had about 5 and I held them up and it looked better. So we work with what we have, but it turns out beautiful regardless. So I end up cutting these in half and I'm going to go ahead and glue them around the coffee can. Again, I just used regular old Dollar Tree school glue. It worked just fine, and I deliberately left the paper on because that paper is glued on really strong, and that was a better surface for my little pool noodle to stick to. And I'm just going about gluing them on. I do go and get a hairband to put around the coffee cans because I realize that since I'm using wet glue, it's going to need time to dry. Now, if you use the center of a paper towel, like this I showed you in the beginning, those little cardboard things, you could use hot glue, but you can't really do it with these foam pool noodles. I was too worried they would melt, and if they were to change shape at all or kind of like have a dent and kind of cave in a little bit, it would ruin the entire craft. So just to be extra careful, I used cold glue for this. And I do end up putting a rubber band on the top and on the bottom. You can see it there. They leave marks, like little indentations, but they look really cool. They look like a factory etching. So it just makes it look more expensive and high end. I was pleased with that. But if it didn't have that, you guys, if you use a paper towel and you don't get that little edging, that's fine. It still would look good. It's just, in other words, I wasn't upset about it. It all worked out fine. And now I'm taking the Kilz Primer KILZ, and I'm going to give these pool noodles 2 thick coats. I wanted to let you know, after you paint the pool noodles with 2 coats, they come up really strong and stiff and sturdy and kind of dry looking like concrete, which was a wonderful thing. Make sure you use a latex paint though. I wouldn't recommend just acrylic craft paint. I'm showing you the Frisbee I spray painted with some paint and primer, and again I'm using cold glue after I trimmed the pool noodles at the top so it's nice and even, and this came up absolutely gorgeous. This is my inspiration piece on anthropology, and it is an inspiration piece, so it's not a dupe. Dupe is short for duplicate, so I don't show it at the end because I want you guys just to get the feel for what I'm going for. I liked the colors, I liked the height, and when I was looking at high-end decor online, I saw there were other versions of this. Some bottles are tall, and some have tall, like spouts. or I'm not sure what that's called, but like the part on the top. So it got my creative juices flowing, you guys. So I used 3 different kinds of bottles in different shapes and sizes. And I'm using rolls here now that are from the center of like a heavyweight foil. These are super, super thick ones, the kind that you could actually hurt someone when you hit them. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like it was hard to cut even with a brand new craft knife. I had to saw and saw. They are super thick. You'll see it when they stand up. They're not flimsy. And the trick is they have to fit over the top of the bottle perfectly when you press it down to the base. So I start off by measuring them, and of course I'm making them in cascading heights with tall, medium, and short. And I'm using joint compound to join these 2 things together. You know, on all of the bottles, I'm going to join that cardboard piece down to the bottle and make it look like it's one connected piece. And yes, you can use spackling for this craft as well. It's just I have some joint compound I haven't used in a while, and I thought it would be nice to use it up. This is the next day when it's dried, and I just lightly, ever so lightly, just sand off any areas that are sticking up that look fake. And I did have some cracking just on the small one, no big deal. For this one, because I wanted it to dry quicker, I did use spackling and I just filled it in, and we are good to go. Since this is glass, I am using the Kilz primer again, K-I-L-Z, and I do need 2 coats of this primer on each of the bottles. I decide to go ahead and use the color Granite Gray by Apple Barrel Paint here to cover the entire bottles up. Now you'll notice I didn't use primer on top of the backling or joint compound, either one. It wasn't necessary because I knew the paint was going to adhere, but I thought that this would be a good base color to kind of get the look going that I wanted. And it's not going to be exactly like I said, it's not going to be exactly like the Anthropology piece. It's more with the Anthropology piece, I liked the color blend or color combos. I liked the heights, you know, how they were cascading. I liked that part. So here I am mixing up some white acrylic paint with a little bit of water because the look I'm going for is a streaky look. So I knew if I mixed my paint up with a little bit of water, I would get where it kind of trickled down in rivets almost and gave me a look that would help, I guess, as an under. I've explained in previous videos, it's usually many different processes, or at least more than one process to get a look that you're going for. So I knew I needed my base color to kind of have a look and dimension of its own when I go to do the next step, so that it gives more dimension to that step, if that makes sense. And it just adds to the whole final look, and that's what makes your crafts look really, really high end. So now I'm taking a sponge and I'm cutting 3 different sponges in 3 different shapes here, and this is so I can sponge my colors on. So now I'm using Pewter Gray from Apple Barrel Paint, and these are all Apple Barrel Paint except for the terracotta color from the company that is now out of business, but you can use any color combination you want. I'm making this for my daughter's home because they have a coastal beach. You know, we live by the beach, and they kind of have this boho coastal beach thing going on in their home, and I knew that these bottles would look absolutely gorgeous on her mantle, so that's what I'm going for. But you of course can use any color combination you want. The next color I choose is just a Granite Gray. I believe that's what that's called, but any gray would do. And again, I'm color washing. I'm tapping this on, and you can see me kind of going up and down into the other colors on purpose. And then you'll see me take the sponge and kind of drag it down too, so that you get those streaks. There I go. This is something that you're just playing with and kind of making all the colors blend in, and it's definitely uneven. There is no right or wrong here. You just do it by eye, and you keep messing around with it until you get the look you like. And if you don't like it, you can always paint it again and start over. Just have fun. So now I'm using the color gray again, the first color that I painted, the very first one. And I'm adding white to it because, as you can see there, the blue that I used, I have a blue that's kind of like that coastal blue from Waverly, but I just felt it was like a little too dark for the color I was going, so I used a gray blue color, added white to it, and we're just doing the color blending again. And I took a baby wipe to blend it upwards and downwards, because as these colors go up, I want them to be lighter and softer and very, very muted and blended. So you can see the bottom is very textured. Then we have the blended gray, we have the blended terracotta color, and then the soft blue that kind of goes up into a light gray. And I didn't show you on the top lid, I also did the same thing, blending downwards with the that was a pewter gray right there. And then I'm taking an iridescent pearlescent silver paint by Folk Art, and I'm going over the entire thing with that silver paint to make it iridescent at the end here. You'll see me do it. The camera's not picking it up so well here. I'm trying to show you how it's shiny now and iridescent, but that's what I do to the top stems to make them look really, really high end. Last but not least, I used a gray color to paint the insides of the tops. I took all 3 bottles outside and painted it in a glossy finish, 2 coats, so that they look like ceramic, but this craft came up absolutely stunning, and I hope the camera does it justice. If you enjoyed today's video and had fun, don't forget to leave me a big thumbs up. It is so fun seeing you all every week. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for watching. And as always, until the next video, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.